מסכת Zivahim Davav, I'm sorry, Menahot Davav Amud Aleph. When Zivahim lasts 4 months, sticks in your head. PTSD. Vav Amud Aleph, Menahot, 10 lines down. We were still deciding why we can't use the Kava Homer to Refaz Asur. And we said we gave a pasuk to tell you if you can't learn the Kava Homer, you need the pasuk. So we gave a bunch of explanations why the Kava Homer doesn't work. We're going to try to bring another reason. Another one, maybe the Kavachomer logically doesn't make sense. Me'echa kamatila, where are you trying to prove that the telephone is pasul? Miba'amum from a mum animal. Ma ba'amum shekin asa bo makrivin ki krivin. But 1 second. The Torah equated a person who has a mum, just like the animal has a mum, they're both asur. Regarding telefa, however, according to the telefa is able to bring a korban, while telefa itself cannot, and the telefa animal itself cannot. So, moving on. ما رأي أحد بدر بشيء يصير تلفين أخيار שלא עשה מקרבים קרבים ומות על הג'ודים בסדר גבוה. Again, so he said, but I'll prove to you a C-section also knocks that reasoning out because a C-section animal is sore, but a C-section Kohen is mutar. Where it says, one, the C-section animal can't be kadosh as a bechor versus a terefa. The Gemara says, Ba'amu yochiach. Then a mum animal is the disproof for that. Mum animal cannot become a bechor. It can become a bechor, but can't bring towards the korban. But again, a mum is pasul just like the animal, just like the person. Versus tereva, the Gemara says, C-sections are disproof in that regard. Right, so the argument bounce off each other back and forth, why this doesn't work and that doesn't work. They each have their own personal and specific characteristic of why that doesn't work. And the common denominator is that they are mutar for a regular person and asur for Hashem. So for sure, it is usually asur for a regular person. So for sure, asur for God. Again, why you need a pasuk? The Gemara says, the other cases, you have a common denominator that they don't have any exceptions. But Terefa does have an exception, which we'll see soon. The Gemara says, what's this? What's the exception for Terefa? If you want to tell me that milika technically is not shechita of a bird, maybe that's what it's allowed. But that doesn't make sense because a mumat bird also is kasher. And regarding to mum by an animal, it doesn't apply to birds. So the must be talking about a case Medicat a bird high which is Kohanim not to eat. Kohanim mishulchan gavod kazachov. It doesn't prove anything because Kohanim eat from God's table. It's not considered like a regular food. Gemara says el peri hachi. So you don't want to say a different disqualification of what terefav not through logic. The Gemara says because the common denominator sheken mum nikar that their mum is obvious. Tomorrow terefa sheken any mum nikar, but a terefa the mum is not obvious. Mishumachi tzikran because of that knockout for the kava chomer. Right? Terefa doesn't have to be an external wound. It could be an internal intestinal fatal flaw. That's why I need a pasuk. Okay. With terefa me'achan I know that the terefa is sore in the first place. Wait, you're learning terefa is from here? Me'atim we have a different pasuk. Mimashke Yisrael ma'ana mutar Yisrael. The feast of Bnei Israel. Where that has been brought from something mutar from Bnei Israel. Mikol asher ya'avor ta'at hashavet nafka prat le'terefa she'ina me'ovedet. Right? It excludes a terefa. The Gemara says in tzricha we need all three pasukim. The Imam Mashke Israel only mentioned the pasuk of feast of Bnei Israel. I mean, excluding an animal that was never kasher. They're allowed to be klikim because it's comparable to orlan klikim, which are never asur, never mutar. But an animal that was one time kasher, it must be kasher. So Rahman there for the pasuk wrote kol asher ya'avor. ويكره رحمنا كل شيء only wrote in that pasuk have a meaning of the and then it's about stuff maybe to one case where it first became terefa then kadosh. You meant the maaser that's how maaser works, right? An animal a maaser is regular and becomes kadosh. Aber if you have a terefa in a case where it was kadosh first, then it became terefa. The Aida actually have a hazard because when it was kadosh, it was eligible. Maybe the terefa can be wrought. Bakar for the pasuk, the extra pasuk, teach you tzrichi that is still asur. Okay, new mishnah. Whether a mincha, korban, or any other mincha, We'll explain why I have to specify Menahot Daf if you're mentioning all. Sheikh Masan Zadrik, the Kmitah was done by a non-Kohen onen, if the person is onen, Tulyom, he dipped but has to wait for nighttime. Mechasab Begadim, he's not wearing the Kohen Begadim. Mechasab Kippurim did not get Kaparayat, he has to wait for the day. Shalor, oh, he has been Korban. Shalor Hazad Al he did not wash his hands of feet before serving. Arel is now no Milah, Tameh is Tameh. Yosef, he's sitting instead of standing. Amir Al Gabe Akalim, he's standing on clothing. Al Gabe Mawar, an animal. Al Gabe Al is standing on someone else's foot. Pasul, the case is the Kmitza is Pasul. Kamas Pismo, if he did Kmitza with his left hand, Pasul. Ben B'Tera Omer, Yahzir, if he did it in these cases, he can just put it back where he took it from, and then do it again with his right hand. Kamas, if he did kimitza, and the pebble came in his hand, oh, garger, melech, or a piece of salt, or kodesh levana, a piece of levana, pasul is pasul. The Bnei Shamru, because he said, anything that is excessively or deficiently done with kimitza is pasul. Ve'ezul maheter was considered extra. Shekamasud mevoras, he took the extra, a heaped pile of comets. Ve'hasa was considered missing. Shekamasud instead of using the entire three fingers while pulling them toward his palm, trying to get into the camera. Instead of doing like that fully, where the fingers are going where the thumb is and then pulling back, he just did it minutely from closer to the top of his head. So he took less. That's considered incomplete or deficient. Why is it mentioning mincha of the sinner and then say oh menachot? The Tanisha just said kol menachot shekon zara onen. Any mincha that was done by these people. Why would it specify the sinner? The Gemara says the Rishimon Isri. We need to teach you even according to the Rishimon's halacha. The Tanna says Emar Rishimon. Bedin hu shetehei minachat chotet shetuna shem l'lona. Really, technically, the sinner's mincha should need oil in the banana. Below shelo yeh choten iskar, because we don't want a sinner bring the korban mincha profit by not having to bring extra stuff, right? So we're basically telling the sinner, you bring less stuff. So seemingly we're rewarding him. If that's the case, we'll play my, to be honest, why doesn't he bring it? We don't want it to be beautiful. And also, technically, a hatat brought for eating haleb should also need a libation for the same reason. Now, secondly, not because this you might have thought, the reason why we don't want a sinner's korban be elegant, he can say because maybe therefore, for the same reason, if it was done incompletely by like a sinner's mincha was done by someone who's not eligible, it should also be kasher because it takes away from the beauty. Kamashman, therefore, Rishon says, Rishon is teaching you, even according to Rishon, that it is pasul. Okay. In the case of Mishnah in Zvachim, PTSD, that you talked about animal korbanot litany, you should have mentioned as well. Halib hatat and other hataot sheklu daman adaron levne Rishimon isrif. We should say that Rabbi Shimon needs to specify alma kevin detana they call lokatani hutz kul mashma. Hachanamik kevin detana kol detani hutz kul mashma. Why did our Mishnah specify it? We didn't specify it last time. And by the other Mishnah by animals, we mentioned everything without having to specify the sinner, even though that same logic would have applied. How come we have to help Rabbi Shimon over here, not there? Versus Yitzri needed it. Sakadamina, you would have thought. Since we established the first Mishnah not like Rabbi Shimon, say if maybe the second Mishnah would not be according to Shimon, therefore teach you that this Mishnah can fit according to Rabbi Shimon. Marav, our Mishnah says that if you did the Kimitza, you should turn it back and redo it. Baha Anam Pasal Tanami says Pasul. The says, my Pasal Yazir means Pasul until it's redone properly. Yeah, here's the case. The same thing as Betera. Ben Betera says the same thing you could redo. Versus no. If the Kimitza is still in existence, they don't disagree. Keep pligi wizard machloket, the hasar kamas, where the flour is missing and you can't return it. In that case, you have to refill it. Machloket is over there. Hach means that you can't just refill from your house and redo it. Versus Ben Betera says you can refill. Yeah, here's the case. Ben Betera says that you should return it and do kmitza with the right hand. But that's not what we're saying. It should have said that Ben Betera said you should go replenish from your house with new flour. Seemingly, that's not the point of the contention and disagreement over here. The Gemara says Kikama Rav Ben Betera. No, Rav's saying that when he says that he's returning it, it's according to Ben Betera. The Gemara says that's obviously that's what Ben Betera holds. The Gemara says no. I would think you would have thought Ad can look at machshir ela Ben Betera small. Maybe Ben Betera said it's only kasher when the kmitah was done with left hand and he could redo it. Which absolutely means by the other cases, he can't redo it. Coming from there saying he can do all of them. Why would it be different about the left hand? Because left-handed is a mutar a mutar avodah on Yom Kippur. Zanami, one second, non-coin as well. Shechita, he can slaughter. Non-coin also can slaughter. So the Gemara says Shechita la'avodah. We said it's prior as well that Shechita is not considered avodah. Alone, no. But Amarav is Amarav. Shechita para bezar beslav. Shechita para duma by non-coin is pasul. Amarav Allah Elazar hukak tiba. Rab said that the word Elazar and Hok are mentioned there, seemingly that it's coin required. Gemara says Shani para de kashet be'etek baiti. Paradama is different because that is considered property of the Bet Hamikdash. It's as if it's used for the upkeep. Remember, it says Vlav Kotocheni, but one second, Kal Chomer. If the regular property of the Mikdash, like the Paradama needs Kohen, Kosher Mizbeach for Val so for sure this other component of the Mizbeach for sure would need a Kohen. It goes against logic. The Gemara says, "Amarab shishi b'derei idi midi dahava ot negaim la'avodainu ubay kuna." No, the reason why paraduma needs a kohen is because the Torah mentions it, just like the Torah requires a kohen to specifically do the checking of the tzaraat, which technically you wouldn't necessarily need the kohen except for the Torah telling us. So over here as well, but it's not a proof that it's considered avodah. Slaughtering is not considered avodah. Okay, v'nelef mibama. Why did Rav need to say that Ben Betra would allow a Kimitz Adam and non-Kohen? That it can be fixed? Let's learn from the halacha that a non-Kohen can do avodah over there. So to over here, the Gemara says, maybe you want to tell me that you can't learn from Bimah, but it says, how do you know that someone leaves the Hechal, the Mikdash? If you bring it up back from the it doesn't come down. Because the same thing works by Bama. So we see that Bama can compare. The Gemara says, Azot Torah Ha'olah, this is the law of the Allah, teaching you that that's the only reason why it works over there, but otherwise you can't compare. Okay. Now the reason, now we're saying that, okay, fine. The reason why Ben Mitzvah allows Kimitz by any disqualified person is because of Rav said so. Halavachi, if it wasn't for Rav, Havamina Bishar Paslin Pasal Ben that Ben Mitzvah say it's always Pasul and you can't fix it, but other guys, but Hanabart says, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon, Omrim, Machshir, have Ben Mitzvah, Bechol Paslin Bekulam, Machshir, Rabbi Mitzvah said that all the Menahot are done by other people are all kasher. But Hanabart says, V'kamat Misham. You should take the comments from there, teaching you from where the owner is standing. Even where the non-Kohanim are. How do you know if he did it with his left hand, he could redo it with the right hand? Now, since over there the pasuk was not did not mention the pasuk over there. Mali small, Mali sharp. Would make a difference whether it was on the left hand or other people. Seemingly, means he applies to any pasuk, not just left-handed or non-Kohanim. The Gemara says, why was Rav teaching us on Hadush? Kamatz va'afilu kiddush. He did kimitza. He can put it back even if he put it in a kli sharet and made a kiddusha. Lafuki mehani tanai excludes the following tanai. The Tanna it says, Riosi ben Yasyan, Rebida hanachtom amru. But when we say ben Torah says mutar, shekamatz v'lo kiddush, where he did not put into kiddusha. Aval kiddush, if he put into another kadosh vessel, pasul is permanently pasul. So this is excluding that. He says it is not permanently pasul. Vigdari different version of kamatz in kiddush law only if it's in kimitza but not kiddusha. Kiman was according to the Kahanim, like the other Tannaim we just mentioned now. Against Tanakama who says that not. Okay. What is the reason for those Tanaim of Yossi ben Yasan and Rebbe ben Nachton? If Kmitza of a pasul person makes a pasul, even if he doesn't put a new vessel, she make a pasul. If it's not considered an avodah, what's the difference if you put it into a new kli? Or says Hadam Rahman, no, it is really avodah. But the avodah of Kmitza is not complete, so you put it into the kli. That's why the Gemara says, so who cares? Even if you're not put into a new vessel, it should be pasul for the following reason. If you puts the Kmitza back in the original place, Tedosh v'sol, it should be kadosh when you're putting it back and become pasul. Must be that the vessels only make it pasul if you have it in mind. No, here he's not, but he's returning it. The Gemara says, but that means that does make a kiddusha. How do we know that the vessels can vessels, kadosh vessels, make something kadosh that were pasul in the first place? Meaning, if a non-Kohen did the kimitza and he put the kimitza into a vessel that's kedusha, does the vessel make it kadosh that now you could put in there? Amalei, he says, even though there was intention. The Gemara says, no. There's no kedusha to bring the mizbeach, aval mikadashin lepasul. But if that intention was to bring it, then it is enough to make it pasul, but not enough to make it eligible to be brought, right? So yes, he did a boo-boo that you can't bring it, but don't think that just because you can't bring it means that if you bring it in there, it's okay. No, you cannot bring it.